spigot here. Okay, so we can use that to line up our other components. Right, what else do we need to do then? So we might as well finish some of this off. I think what I'll do is, it needs a chamfer on there, then I'm going to put on some tactiles. Okay, so chamfer. Just a simple fat chamfer. And select that accordingly like so. Okay, that's just to help with assembly. And then we're going to put on some tactiles for these various bosses. So, let's have a look. How do we go about that? Well, we use the Hole Wizard. I have to say the Hole Wizard has improved quite a bit since the last version. So, it used to be very annoying before. So we select the Hole Wizard and we can put on a tactile. And there's a straight tactile like so. And all of these were going to be M8. Okay, so M8. Standard pitch for an M8 is 1.25. How deep do we want it? Well, this depth here is the depth to the bottom of the threaded part. Now, general rule of thumb when you're screwing into aluminium is that you use about 2.5 times the thread diameter. Okay, so if it's an M8, that means you need about 20 millimetres of thread engagement. But you need a bit more thread than the actual screw going in, otherwise you risk the thing tightening up on the bottom of the thread. So we'll make this, say, not 25, that's too much, 23, that will do. It's now suggesting that we go 26.75. That's very short actually, I'm going to make that 28. This is the tapping depth. So this is the hole that you drill before you actually tap the hole. And we need a little bit more depth so that the tap's got some run out. Okay? So that gives that. And then just as a nicety, we're just going to put on a little chamfer on the front edge. And it suggested 8.05, I'm happy enough with that actually. That just goes out to very slightly more than the thread diameter. It just means the top thread is countersunk very slightly. I actually prefer counterbores, but SolidWorks is very unkeen if you use counterbores. It takes quite a lot of effort. So that's got all of the parameters set up for the thread. So now all I've got to do is position it. So we select this other tab, position, and we'll select this surface. And now it's asking us to position the hole. So drag over the edge of that so that it will find the centre. And there it is, one there. Do the same here. One there. And I need to zoom in here. One there and one there. Okay, do that. There we go, we've got all of our tactiles there. Now, as that size is also the size I'm going to use for holding the two cases together, I'll put those on as well. I'm just going to hide that sketch because I don't want to pick up on that directly, so hide that. And then we'll just go on here, and if we do Hole Wizard, all those sizes it will remember, so all we've got to do is position them. So we select this face, and here's our first hole here, and now here, and here. Now there's also going to be one in this double boss. I want it to be in line with this other one, so this lower part of the boss is going to be used for a dowel pin later on, so we'll worry about that later perhaps. Just got that done. before we go any further, it's never a bad idea to just line up the model so you can see it, okay? And just put your cursor onto these fasteners to make sure that they're not actually going to break through anywhere. So you'll see here, that is absolutely fine there. So that's got no chance of coming through the case. What about that one? That's got no chance, I don't think, of coming through the outside. Sometimes you actually have to section the thing to be sure, but I think that's okay. You do need to have a look around to make sure that that doesn't happen. So highlight that. You see, with that rounded edge, they do get quite close in a few places, but I think they're all right. Right, let's put on these ones now. These are the bigger ones, so we'll do Hole Wizard. And we're going to increase this to an M10 now. So standard pitch for an M10 is 1.5. So, if we're doing 2.5 times 10 is 25, add on a couple of millimetres to be sure. So we'll increase that up to say 28, I think. Okay, and I'll make that slightly longer there, 34. No, even 30. No, 34 would be right. And what about chamfer? 10.05, yep, happy enough with that. So that's everything I want there. Select this face here, and then we just drag over here and put that boss on there. Okay. Right, that's looking okay. Now then, these ones are in a bit more danger of breaking through actually. If I just look in here, you can see it's actually getting quite close to the inside of the case. So you do need to check that to make sure they don't. The other thing, of course, you can just look on the inside of the case. Right, what we'll do with all of those, we'll also put in these ones here. They were going to be M12, and this time they're through holes, so Hole Wizard, and M12 by 1.75, doesn't matter about the dimensions here because it's through all. We will count all the top, so I might actually increase that a little bit, 12.5, because I'm going to a cast surface. And I want to make sure that it's nice and clean for the thread to start, so we'll do that and then position. And unfortunately you have to do these separately because they start on different levels. So we'll select that one and then we put that right in the middle. Okay. And then we do Hole Wizard and the next one. Position on here, stick that in the middle like so. Okay, so that's actually moved on quite a bit. I'm sure some of you are thinking, oh good, it'll be finished soon, but I'm afraid I won't. So, save that. We've done quite a decent amount onto this case. But I think we need to do a few other things yet, so close that. Okay. So we've made some good progress there. What I will do is I'll put in a couple of screws in here. One thing I was going to say to you, I'm going to give you a link to some videos which go through every little bit of this. However, there are some differences because of changes to the software. And one of the differences is that previously the student edition didn't have the toolbox, and so we created parts separately rather than just putting them straight in from the toolbox. So when it comes to those parts on the videos, you just have to ignore the way it's done and remember this way. So let's do design library, toolbox, and we'll go for BSI. For the standards, bolts and screws. And what we're looking for is set screws, socket head set screws. There we go. And I think what I want to use is these flat point ones. Okay, so that's a 4168-2. And I'm just going to drop one of those over there, rather large, but there you go. Come up with a thing asking me what size I want in a moment. Right, so M12, length 20, perfect. Simplified model, yep, that's good. That's all right. And we'll do that. And then I'll put down one more as well. Okay, and then finally we'll do that. So I've got two set screws there, so now I can assemble them into position. Okay, so it's happened to put them the right way around for me. You see on this end it's got a little hexagon cut inside, that's used for tightening it up. So we need the other edge for lining up, so we'll do mate there onto the back of this adjuster. Okay, so okay with that, and then we've got to align it axially, so we'll take that diameter there and that diameter there. Let's got that lined up like so. So happy enough with that. Then we'll do this next one, which is that face there onto that diameter there. Okay, and the outside diameter onto there. Right, so it's got a couple of screws in there. Right, well I feel that the input case has been rather sort of neglected, so that's what I'm going to move on to next. So, sorry if I'm sort of pounding you here. Does anybody need the loo or anything? No, you're all right? Yeah, wrap your arms around in the hair for 5 minutes if you like, if you need a break. You're all right to carry on? Yeah. Yeah?
Can you just go over again where you found those screws in the drawing?
Sure. It's just design library. Okay, let me go back up to the top here. So you got, there's the toolbox, you just select BSI, and then you scroll down, bolts and screws. Scroll down here, set screw socket, and then you get the specific types in there. Okay? Get that?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, let's go on to the input case. So, the main thing that I'm missing on my input case, and some of this is sort of repetition for you, it's slightly different on the input case. You'll see why in a minute. So, what I haven't got, if I just zoom in here, we can illustrate this. I don't have the bosses on this case to correspond to the bosses on that case. That's the main thing that's missing. So I want to get that in. I've also noticed I haven't rounded off those corners and things like that yet. So I'm just going to get a little bit of work done on this, and hopefully it won't take too long to do, and then we'll call it quits, I think. Okay, so I would say we'll be done by 1:45 anyway. Right, so without any more to do, case input, open part, and I was just noticing there, there's my two bosses on the input case. I did put draft on them. That had to be added as a separate operation. It wasn't drafted as part of the boss because the draft is different on the inside to the outside of the case. Anyway, right, so we have our sketch, so we can use that for creating the bosses. And one thing I just want to check here is how thick my case is. So we'll just save a little bit of time. So what we'll do is we'll do measure, evaluate. I suppose this surface, I'll do, I didn't select measure, did I? Right, that face onto this face. Let's say that they're 39mm apart. So that's brilliant actually, because I want my bosses to end up very slightly higher, and I'd like it to be a nice round number, so something that ends in a 5 or a 0. So I can make the bosses 40 long, and they'll fit in there very nicely. That's because it means you can use standard fasteners very easily. If I make these bosses 40 long, and I want 20mm of engagement of thread in the other case, then obviously I end up with a 60mm long screw, which is perfect. Okay? Now, you can have a little bit of sort of, you know, it would do no harm if it ended up being 41 and you had 19mm of engagement, but it's just convenient the way it's worked out for me. So, that's great. Right then, so we better get on with putting on these bosses. Now, it's slightly different because you have to do the bosses in 2 stages, because you've got the protrusion that you had on the other case, which is just all the way around the inside, getting slightly bigger, but you've also got the boss carrying right to the outside of the case so that you can put a fastener on. So I'm going to start off by putting on that first, is the ones going on the outside. It doesn't matter the order, I should say that. So we shall do feature, extruded boss, same old front plane. Sorry, I missed a step there. Right. Extruded boss, select plane, front plane, like so, and then we're going to copy the circles that we want. So convert entities, and we just go around, and sometimes it doesn't let you select them straight away, you have to wait a second, so there you go. Somebody emailed me about having a problem, sometimes it is just a question of patience. So, now for the double bosses, you only select the ones that are symmetrical. Okay, so I haven't selected that circle there, and I haven't selected the other circle up there, and that's why I've always left them as circles. I've never blended them in the master sketch. I know some people have. If you've done that, then what you'll have to do is you'll have to draw a circle using the other one as a reference. But that's got my bosses there, so that's good. So convert entities. Okay. So finished that. Now, we close the sketch, and we use my old favourite offset plane, and we'll offset it by the height I want these bosses, which is 40mm. Okay, and it'll probably need me to, oh no, it has gone in the right direction. So, it's gone out here. Now actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it more than 40, because I'm going to round the ends of them and then cut them off again. And if I don't do that, it's quite difficult to get the fillets around these bosses. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So I'll make these 42. Okay, so they're out there now. So I am going to cut them back to 40 eventually. So that's that. Then we do up to body, and the body is this body. So have a good old think about that. It's going in the wrong direction at the moment, so we change the direction so it's going inwards. Okay, so it's going that way. Then we need to put on some draft. Now the draft has gone in the wrong direction, as so often happens, so we need to change the draft outwards, and that's got that on there like that. Okay, so you've got all those bosses down there. Now, I should say sometimes this doesn't work, and for me it has worked, and so that's great. Sometimes it doesn't work, and it's usually because a boss has sort of rolled off one feature onto another. And 9 times out of 10, the way to fix it is to adjust the sketch. But if you have to do that, it's not the sketch in this view that you adjust, because that's just a copy of the other sketch. It's the sketch on the other case that you have to adjust. And it means you just have to move the bosses slightly to get this to work. So it's maybe a bit unfortunate that it's worked so well for me, but if it doesn't, when you get stuck in the class, we'll show you, but it's the other sketch that you have to adjust, and it's usually just a case of moving the boss very slightly away from a corner or into a corner or whatever. Okay, so that's got that done there. Now, right, what I need to do, you remember I made the bosses a tiny bit too long, so I'm going to put on a 2mm radius on the corner of each of those. So I'll also do this box here because that needs to be rounded as well. This one doesn't. This one is going to be machine sharp, okay? But this one is just left as cast. Okay, so that's got all of those rounded like that. And now, because of all that rounding, I can put fillets around this lot very easily. So fillet. Right, so we'll put on 5 for that. This is an internal fillet now, and if we just select there, you'll see that goes around there. Now without that rounding on the end, sometimes it doesn't work, so that's why we've done it. Okay, so it's got that in there, and I'll also fillet these 2 bosses here. Okay. Now what I did forget to do is I forgot to round this lip before I did that, so I'm going to wind this back so that I'm back up to where the lip is. And we'll just round that off. So zoom in there, fillet 2, okay, and then we just drag that down there. Okay, so that's all blended in there very nicely. And now I've got to make these, I want them to have a machined end on them, so I've got to cut away to achieve that. So I know I made the bosses 2mm higher than I wanted, so I use that as a starting point. So extruded cut, let's just zoom in here. So we use this as a reference plane. And all I need to do is really make sure I don't machine these bosses off here, these 2 bosses, so we'll just draw circles around them. So circle around that one, circle around this one. I suppose we'll put on some dimensions to lock them. So 120 say, and what will make that one? 83. needs to be small. It needs to be small enough that it doesn't run over these bosses, and big enough so it doesn't cut into these bosses. We'll trim out this bit in the middle, like so. Okay. Now that's got my basic cut-out shape, figure of 8 there. We're going to do the usual trick. We're going to offset inwards by 2 millimeters. So it's inwards, not outwards. We're going to do through all. Okay, cut outwards. And we need to flip the side we cut, so we're cutting outwards like so. And when we do that, you'll see that we've now trimmed off the top of those bosses. And if we just zoom in on, well, let's take that one there. You see that the fillet is actually getting cut through. So that's why we had to do that whole sort of, and it's made the boss actually not quite circular, because it's circular from this point round to this point, but inside here the fillet is actually adding a little bit onto the shape of the boss. Okay, let's do the bosses inside the case. These will be exactly the same as you've done previously, so should be easy enough. Extruded boss, front plane. Flip this over so we can see it from the other side. Okay, so all we need to do is convert entities, and we just go around selecting all these little circles again. You'll notice the other bosses didn't come through to this side of the case. I have a terrible habit with this convert entities. I select all the circles and then I forget to actually say that I have selected them and I'm happy with them. Okay, so we're now going to blend these two at the top together. So we'll just put on the tangential line, and I find it useful to select somewhere that's deliberately not where you want the tangent to end up. So down to there. There. Right, trim. It's very important when you trim that you get this little bit in the middle, because quite often people do this and then they leave a little hole in the middle. Okay, so you have to make sure you get that as well. Unfortunately, that's done. What so often happens is it's lost some relationships, so we'll just see what it is that's been affected. Right, so it needs to have add relation, that onto there, clear selection, right, that onto there, and coincident. And I'm not sure whether that's got that. Right, so we can change that. So we also need to make add relation. We want that arc there onto that arc, and I suppose we can make that tangent. So that's got that done. It's always tedious when it does this. Okay, we've got to now add on clear selection. We want to put that line onto that line. Sorry, something's happened here. That's all right, I was just getting confused which lines were selected. So now we want this line onto that, we want that to be a tangent, so it's got that one done. And then finally we want a relationship, this line onto this line, and we want tangent. Not offering that as an option. I think that was happened. Right. This line onto this line, tangent. Finally. Okay, so it's got that one done. And the reason why I had all of that bother was that little bit in the middle. When I deleted that, it sort of lost the relationship. Hopefully this one at the bottom is not overlapping. So it's very close to overlapping, so it shouldn't be the same amount of problem. Okay. And then trim this out in the middle, and that one's fine, so that's good. Okay, so we now have all of those bosses there. So we've finished the sketch. And let's just zoom in a bit so we can see what we're doing. This time we're not offsetting, we're going to protrude inwards. So we'll do up to body, so we'll select the body, change the direction probably. Just wait for this to finish. Oh no, it's gone in there alright. Add on the draft. 3 degrees, I think that went the other way, so draft outwards, that's better. One thing by the way is a little tick box here, merge results. Always have that selected, otherwise it ends up sometimes that the parts are actually separate. When you section the view, you see a line between different features. So we'll do that. Okay, so that's got that in there. Now, I can just whip around a quick fillet around all of those. So, fillet. That, and then the last thing I want to do is, this is clearance holes for screws, so we want to use our hole wizard, and we're just going to have a plain hole, and it will be 8.6 diameter. That's a clearance for a screw. Needs a tolerance of the 8.6 to 8.82 normally. And we do through all, so through all, and we select this end face here, and then it's just a case of finding the centres for these. Don't do the extra boss on the double bosses. Okay, I suppose it's not port 2 yet, so I'm going to do one more thing. So that's got that saved. The next thing is very quick. So, file close that. Yes. Okay, so that's all nicely got that there. And what I want to do is I want to put in a screw into this thing. I'm just going to hide the section, I think. So, we go to our toolbox, and we have to come back up the tree here a little bit. Bolts and screws, and what I'm looking for is hexagon socket head screws, so these ones here. And what we want is hexagon socket head, these ones here. Okay, so that's the second one from the bottom. I don't know if you've all got that. Alright, so we'll just select that. Put that over here actually. Let's put that there like that. And we need to choose the the size on it, so it's got M8, so that's good. It's chosen 60 long, which is brilliant, so I don't know whether it works that out itself, but that is the size I need, because I have 40 there and I want 20 of engagement. So that's got that done. Now, I could go around and plonk them in one at a time, but I just wanted to show you a little trick. So, and I promise this is the last thing. So we'll just put in a relationship here. We'll put mating relationship, that face there, onto that face there. Okay, so that's good. And then we'll put that into that. Okay, so it's got that one. Now then, to put on the rest of them, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on here feature-driven component pattern. Okay, so I'll just select that screw there to make it a bit easier for myself. And we do feature-driven component pattern. So it knows that it wants that screw. And the next step is the driving feature. So we select that box there. And the driving feature is these holes. Okay? So select C position. Right. At the moment, it's put all these bosses, these screws all over the place apart from where I want it. And what I have to do is select the C position. So that's basically this boss here. So that's my starting position. It's got itself muddled as to where they should go, you see. So that's got it. Now when I selected that, did you see that screw suddenly appeared there? And now I've got screws in all of those bosses where I want them. Okay, so we just do that. And hey presto, that's got all the screws in there holding the two cases together. Okay, so you've all done very well. Lasting out. Any questions before I finish? Yeah, it's only just after 1:30, it's not bad. We are running out of weeks, so you are going to have to start putting in a big effort on these models. All of this is supposed to be handed in by Easter.